Todd Hussey here with our regular Outsource IT webinar. We're all about these webinar series providing education, thought leadership in this new world of technology, which is it's really going at the speed of light. And I'm here with Outsource IT, and I'm going to call Outsource IT a modern technology provider, which is very accurate. Because as the world of technology is changing again dramatically, the technology partner for the SMB and above needs to keep up, and I'm just going to use the word modern. And I have with me today Paul Little. He's the Director of Operations at Outsource IT. Known him a long time. He's been around the block. He's kind of bringing Outsource IT with the rest of the management team to this new technology era. And how you doing, Paul?
Doing great, Todd. Thanks for the introduction. I don't know. Where do I even begin with this, right? What is a modern technology provider, Todd? That's, I guess, the million-dollar question. And really, I think my focus is, how do we really give our customers what they want? And I really think it starts with the consumerization of IT and how that just continues to evolve. If you were to ask me 10 years ago what IT would look like, my crystal ball really wouldn't be able to tell you what it is today. But just a quick history lesson, 10, maybe a little bit more years ago, people would say, wow, all of the things at work, I really wish I had them at home. And that's because big enterprise and corporate environments just had cutting edge technology that a regular consumer just wouldn't have access to, or it would be too costly. And that shift just started really taking place in the last decade to where now users, when they go home, the level of accessibility, the level of robust applications they have that are either free or pennies on the dollar to what they were used to paying years ago, it's just so readily available. So where am I going with all that? It's really, how do we emulate that experience? How do we give our SMB customers what they're used to having at home, but in a way where it's safe, secure, and functional for that SMB modern workplace? So Todd, cut me off anytime you want to.
No,
I really think that's the vision here.
You nailed it, Paul. Let's get into a couple slides to kind of summarize, if you will, or pick apart what you're saying here. Mm-hmm. Because what you're saying is absolutely the essence of something we've never seen before in the many years of technology going back. Let's go back to the mainframe. And with this thing called cloud computing, we've never ever seen this before, and it's nothing other than opportunity, productivity.
Yeah.
I like the way you put consumerization, but I also like the way you put safe for the business, because that's mandatory.
Absolutely. And there's different cloud solutions out there, and we can talk cloud all day long, what that means. But you talk about the mainframe. I think really that's the inception of cloud. Back in the 70s, early 80s, people would rent out mainframe time because they were it was not affordable for even larger enterprises to be able to have that type of compute power. Well, then we kind of went into this thing called traditional SMB networking and client server networking. And then all of a sudden you started hearing about virtualization 10 plus years ago. It really started becoming mainstream in the larger corporate environments. And really all that was a modern way of building a mainframe with more modern operating systems and applications. So Big Blue or IBM or other competitors that manufactured those mainframes, they're now in a space where with that new level of mainframe or virtualization, some of us technology geeks called it the x86 mainframe. I mean, really, that was how all of this stuff really started skyrocketing in the background when it comes to the modern cloud today. A lot of people just don't realize it, but the consumer, when they hear cloud, some actually think it is a cloud. But all jokes aside, really, it's just it's storing your data and running applications in these big data centers in a very friendly way. So please, Todd, didn't mean to jump too much.
You're a great straight man, Paul, because the slide I have up here right now is exactly what you're saying, and you use the word history lesson. And we're not going back hundreds of years here.
Right.
We're going back in our lifetime, and we lived in a world of on-premise technologies. Mm-hmm. And you talked about the technology and the suppliers, if you will, the vendors.
Yeah.
Well, there's an important piece in between the supplier, the vendor, and the customer, and that's the partner. So we've seen it evolve from what's called a value-added reseller that basically resells and adds some type of value in terms of services to on-premises technology. Then in the early 2000s-ish, we saw kind of a new model, but it was really a new services model called a managed services provider, which is really, really what you guys have wrapped around and make a very successful business. But you guys have been, I'll just say, smart enough to understand early enough that with cloud, and I'm going to use the word hybrid cloud, because getting into cloud can be a light switch, depending on the customer's needs, or a dimmer switch, which would be a transition or a journey. You need the modern technology provider that used to be yesterday's partner. You have to have that experience.
That's right.
You also have to have today's experience. Is that fair?
Hey, it's more than fair. And, I think there's something that really differentiates outsourceIT. And you talk about a hybrid cloud, where a lot of smaller MSPs that kind of jump into this have struggles with is building that transition strategy for the customers that want to either go partial or full cloud. And I think where they also have the biggest trouble is where the customer wants to go full cloud. It's pretty easy now for someone to remove a small business Exchange server and get email into Office 365. In fact, there's tool sets out there. I don't want to give away the secret sauce that it does a lot of the heavy lifting for you, where it definitely wasn't like that 5 years ago. Engineers would scratch their heads for hours on end. But really, that next level for customers that say, I'm already kind of in the cloud, I want to get fully there, can you take me? And a lot of times, it's not as easy as the vendor either thinks it is, or at least how the customer might portray it. We've been doing this for a very long time. We have a variety of different sized customers, from the SMB of 5 to 10 seats to the enterprise with over 1,000 seats, and very complex applications that still, even to this day, aren't made to be in the cloud. Well, at least by default, as the IT folks would say, but we're able to do that.
So let's get in a bit, Paul, in the next slide or two. What I'd really like to get in is after this slide, which we're going to talk about what is the cloud. Because I firmly believe, although you and I live this world, it is still very confusing to people. So let's get into a little bit of what is it without over confusing, but oversimplifying it. Okay. Then I want to get into what's the value. Okay. And you are the guy that sits with clients and listens, has whiteboard sessions, and understands what problems they really want to solve.
Sure.
and how you match that to their business desires. But first of all, what is cloud? Well, basically, it's any technology that historically has been delivered on customer site. Now it's being delivered via the internet. Not to oversimplify it, but that's really kind of what it is.
Yeah.
There were three kind of legs of the cloud stool. One is infrastructure as a service, so you can think of Amazon Web Services as an example. I'm just using examples here. Okay. You can think of software as a service, SaaS. And kind of the first guys to ever get into this business was Salesforce.com. Now there's thousands, if not tens of thousands of SaaS companies out there. And you can see that's the big blue piece, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the sweet spot of where cloud is going, in my humble opinion. Then there's
user interfacing, so sure, absolutely.
Exactly. That's where the rubber meets the road, if you will, with SaaS, in terms of the CFO having a beer at night on his computer saying, hey, what SaaS applications can make my finance organization better?
Why can't I just use my free Dropbox account at work? It just, right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's platform as a service. So we don't have to dwell on this slide, but just at 100,000 feet for everyone listening out there, those are the three main legs of the stool. There are a bunch of other legs of the stool, unified communications as a service, blah, 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 blah. We don't have to get into. But my message here is really twofold. It's growing exponentially, and we ain't seen anything yet in terms of cloud.
Yeah.
It can be a light switch. It can be a dimmer switch based on what the customer's desires and you having whiteboard sessions with them. And where it gets really confusing for customers is SaaS. Is all that fair?
Oh, totally, absolutely. And again, like you said, I mean, there's so many different as a service type offerings. I think one of the bigger ones that we'll see in the next few years, it's definitely getting a lot more traction is security as a service.
Yep.
outsourceIT is able to deliver a lot of solutions with that as well. So where do we take this journey from here, Todd? What else do we explain?
We explain the value, and this is your sweet spot, my friend. This is where you and your business partners and your smart engineers have smart conversations with smart business people and talk about the value. And let me kind of set you up here. I have a little slide here where it says cloud and on-premise. So it could be the light switch, it could be the dimmer switch, okay?
Yeah.
In either way, it's a journey. There's a migration to it, right? It's a journey. Mm-hmm. It's a safe journey. It's a secure journey. And I could go over dozens of values of cloud/hybrid cloud.
Sure.
The most simple one is to a CFO. It's a transition to an operations expense model.
That's right.
It is truly business solutions to business people. It is truly a path to lowering total cost of ownership of technology. It is infinitely scalable up and down, buy seats, take away seats in real time. And to your point, when we started this conversation minutes ago, it provides Fortune 500 class technologies, my words, to the small to medium business, to business people. So when you are talking to your clients and you're having these conversations, what do they think, or what are they seeing the value in cloud?
Wow, where do you even begin with that, and how much time, right? I mean, so let's kind of digress a little bit, and if I get into too much of the nuts and bolts, please cut me off. Sometimes I can get passionate about IT, but really, I mean, certain things we just take for granted now in the IT world, or even in the business world. If it was 5 or 6 years ago, it was I need redundancy on my servers, and I need to be able to have and the ability that one server has a catastrophic failure or problem, that it just restarts automatically on surviving hardware, and I'm back up and running in a couple minutes, and everything's just fine. Those solutions, although some of them are available for what I'll call the larger SMB, they're still not necessarily something that the average size business wants to really pour money into year after year, regardless of the energy cost. And depending on the server hardware, and I mean just an average server, I don't mean something that has a ton of compute there, but every server you turn off, you can save $700 or $800 a year in just energy and cooling costs. So I mean, like where do I even begin on the benefits of making that transition? Not having to see the blinking lights, not having to have a server room or data center inside of your business. I mean, the benefits are just amazing. And when you go to these cloud solutions, all of that stuff that most people take for granted is there. The redundancies, the geo-redundancies for backup data as well as primary data, all of that stuff can be tailored in these solutions at pennies on the dollar compared to what would typically cost the average business. The economies of scale is my point. If I'm leveraging Azure for all or part of a cloud solution for one of my customers, the buying power that someone like a Microsoft or Amazon Web Services has, I can build a great solution that is comparable in terms of what it delivers. But if I'm using their hardware, I just can't beat those dollars. I just can't do it.
Let me ask you a question, Paul. To what extent in these whiteboard discovery, planning, migration conversations that you have, are business people involved in these conversations?
To what extent? Oh, wow. So obviously we have strategy sessions in the beginning, and really that is us having an opportunity to do a quick assessment of the existing environment, and then sitting down with decision makers to see what their business goals are. And some of them are very simple. Get it all out of here. Others might say, get it out of here in 2 years and start with these things. Others might say, what are other people in similar verticals doing that I'm not? Yep. And really, again, there is no one glove fits all solution. It's really understanding what the customer wants, what we've done based on past performance, and how we can all just make it work. In fact, sometimes we go through, and again, if I ramble, cut me off, Todd, but sometimes it's actually simpler to forklift everything they have in a virtual capacity, put it into a data center, and then start cloud enabling solutions one at a time. I might be able to get that done with 30 days, and some larger projects might take a few months. But while that happens, they can still really enjoy the benefits of all of that underlying low-cost hardware as a service, or like you talked about, infrastructure as a service.
So before we started the recording, we asked you to erase the whiteboard in back of you.
Okay.
And
right.
You said you had a whiteboard session with a client. So, which is exactly what we're talking about, right?
Sure. That's absolutely.
Because their world can be a whiteboard. Let's just imagine what it can do, right?
You have to draw what's up there first.
Yep.
And then you've got to get the creative cooks or engineers in here to say, wow, I could really do X, Y, and Z. Yep. And before all that's done, though, it's important to understand what kind of costs they have associated with any kind of technology that's in production or currently being used in the environment now. We can design a solution that is very expensive, and we can also design a solution that's great at a low cost. It really depends on what the requirements are. Yep. So again, the quick version is we get a mini assessment. We take a look at what the customer has at a very surface level. Then we try to understand some of the business goals for whether it be immediate, next fiscal year, or even a 3 to 5 year strategy for some of the larger clients.
Yep.
Then we figure out what are other people doing, what have we done before to either save a few dollars or add additional functionality. A lot of times, though, Todd, most people have more functionality than they can even imagine. They just don't use the functionality that's there.
Yep.
And you'd be surprised. I say, well, I can turn this on, and this on after we get you to the cloud, or even before we get you to the cloud. And they say, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I say, well, it's already built into the servers that you have. Your last IT vendor just never turned it on for you.
Yeah. So let's get into some more of. We've been talking technology a lot, right?
Yeah.
And cloud and transition. I can't speak enough about the middle guy. Okay, the modern technology provider, and you talked about whiteboard sessions. We talked about the modern technology provider has to not just appear overnight, right? Because it has to have a yesterday's experience as well.
Sure. So
to that point, that modern technology provider needs to be not cloud only, because again, this what do you have is a yesterday's world. I need to understand that. We need to get into the next phases, right?
Sure.
To your point, begins with the end in mind. I'm a huge fan of Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Begin with the end in mind, business goals, objectives, and challenges. You mentioned that many times there are non-tech people in these meetings. You got to talk their language too.
Yeah.
You got to have, and you can't do it alone. Outsource IT can't do this alone. You have to have partnerships with the big guys. I'm just going to pick a name, Microsoft as an example, right? Sure. And here's my special sauce, or your special sauce, okay? You got to offer the dimmer switch where required, the light switch where required, customization, and fully manage the cloud services, including what's near and dear to my heart, as well as yours, virtual CIO.
That's right. And those services that very well said, Todd. A lot of people simply give us a call and say, give me a quote, I want to go to the cloud.
Yep.
And if it's a point solution or a software as a service type solution, there's no big transition that needs to take place. That can be done, sure, right? But this kind of goes back to having that umbrella of services. You're going to need someone at the virtual CIO or CTO level to really come in after that initial assessment's been done, after the data's been collected in your environment. And again, we don't make things more complicated than they have to be. I like simple. I love simple. And your existing environment may be 1 or 2 servers. It might not even be that. But you have to have a cloud readiness assessment that really prefaces that really says, can they do this, and will they like it when they do it? Because anyone can turn that dimmer switch or that full light switch off, like you say, but are they going to like it? Are they going to have the bandwidth in place? Will the network equipment be where it needs to be? In fact, if you look at most SMB environments, for historically speaking, the dollars were never spent on the network side. There is this shift that's taking place as things become more cloud aware to get more intelligent, yet still very cost efficient networking equipment that can help them do things to bring that user experience back to better levels. If I were to take application X that the customer's used to using inside the network, and then all of a sudden want them to use it in an altered capacity, sure, but to virtualize the application, so to speak, to make it work in the cloud, they have to have the necessary internet connections and networking equipment to make that work. Otherwise, it may be functional, but it may not work the way they want it to. And at the end of the day, if the users aren't happy, if they're not able to have a very responsive, feature-rich session with all these applications that they use, and when they have to modify data, it's really not going to pass the acid test.
Well, I think we are living internally at a company and to external clients. The big buzzword these days is customer experience.
Okay.
And it's internal customers,
Yeah.
or external customers. And what I'm seeing is internal customers of IT, they have the ability, of which they are, they're going elsewhere to go find solutions for their problems.
That's
and
right.
It goes back to consumerization of IT.
Sure.
And what they need, I'll just pick on the CFO again. He wants someone like an outsourced IT, a modern technology provider that can demystify this crazy cloud, non-cloud, hybrid cloud world in kind of a virtual CIO trusted advisor setting. Is that fair?
That's totally fair. And again, this can be carved up multiple ways. IT used to be, and I'm trying to pull some punches here, but it used to be the roadblock of fraud.
Yep.
Many, and especially the larger environments. It would be something to the effect of so-and-so from business department X comes down and says, I really need to be able to do the following things, and I know of a company that uses this application. IT puts their hands up in the air and says, no, we don't do that. That's not secure. And everyone just listened to IT, and IT kind of just ran the business, for lack of better words.
Yep.
Now the complete inverse is here. Now the business knows that IT is flexible, cloud is flexible. If one IT department can't do it, someone can either augment that department or replace that department.
Exactly right.
I mean, we see it so often where, especially the newer customers and the larger customers that have larger internal IT departments, members of the business, different business units say, we just purchased this application. We just purchased this system or solution. IT, you're going to work with the outside vendor to get it done.
Yep.
And then IT says, oh, wow, I wish I would have known that. I better put that in my schedule next month. So to your point, it's, IT no longer has the stranglehold on business. And it's really exciting because we can really get past a lot of the hurdles of yesterday.
Exactly. Let's get going here. We get this question all the time. So where do you start? And you use the word assessment.
Yeah.
It truly does start assessment. So why don't we? We're going to offer an assessment here. We're also going to take some questions, and so let's do that. Let's start taking some questions, and we'll go from here. Hey, Paul, got some questions here.
Great.
Great job, by the way, of course. Let me see. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What is the typical first step for a customer to get into the cloud?
You mean pre or post assessment, Todd?
Yeah, well, that's a good point.
Well,
I think the question means.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think the question is, what's their first implementation? I think that's the question.
Oh, okay. Well, I think well, if it's the first thing that they've done, I think there's a lot of buzz around getting messaging into the cloud, and most of our SMB customers, or even our medium-sized customers, they're going to focus on getting divorcing themselves from an on-prem Microsoft Exchange solution. So whether it be Office 365, or in the rare cases that there is a need to use an alternate Exchange messaging hosting provider, that's typically where a lot of them start.
Okay.
But again, a lot of people are there. A lot of people have it on the roadmap to go. There are plenty of things too, depending on what your business is doing. whether it's an AMS, a CRM, a finance
Yep.
application.
Yep.
Normally, with most of the big players, there is a solution readily available that's tested and will be functional and can offer the same type of experience.
So arguably Office 365 is an appetizer, if you will, and quickly after that, if not at the same time, you're giving them more cloud meals. Is that fair?
Yeah, I'm and I have been for quite some time a very big promoter of Microsoft cloud services, whether it be Azure, whether it be Office 365. We have multiple data centers that are integrated with the Azure cloud, and I can't get enough of it. But I think there's also and this is where outsource IT comes in greatly. So there's a lot to Office 365. That can mean a lot to different people. There are different packages. There are the solutions that everyone's familiar with when it comes to the main Office productivity suite, like your Outlook, your Excel, your Word, your PowerPoint. But depending on the package too, there's a lot of other things that come with it. That can help you with your online meetings, that can help you collaborate better. They promote SharePoint, OneDrive. But the devil's in the detail too. Just because you can find an Office 365 subscription ranging from $5 a month per user to an upwards of $20 per month per user, you may or may not really need or want to use all of the features that are coupled with it. And that's where outsource IT can help you figure it out.
Yep. Next question. What percentage of customers are dimmer switch versus light switch?
I think it's a healthy mix of both. Some of them like to forklift. And what I mean by that is just take everything and say, I want to have that. I use forklift, you use the straight light switch. And others really just want to transition over a few years of time. And normally the latter is when their environments are a lot more complex, or they have that one or two business applications that just haven't really proven themselves yet in the cloud.
Yep. How long does an assessment take?
Assessments can take us as little as a few hours. Basically it's a canned questionnaire that one of our cloud representatives, one of our sales associates would speak with one or more members of the business. We get that information, we pass it off to engineering, and with a little bit of vetting, we can come up with a decent plan to discuss next steps. And others, depending on the size of the engagement, can take a few weeks because we have to figure out that transition strategy. And we typically meet with, and again, the larger environments where there's dozens or even sometimes hundreds of applications, we meet with different stakeholders. And in the big business, normally there is at least one business sponsor or group that's in charge of some of those bigger line of business applications. So those typically take at least 3 to 4 weeks. But the average SMB, a few hours of time, one or more phone calls, and a Knights of the Round Table meeting to discuss next steps.
Cool. Last question. Any particular verticals adopting cloud more than others?
I mean, the professional services vertical, if you're looking at vertical specific, the true definition of a vertical by far. But, for-profits, nonprofits, associations, we have a small footprint in a few customers in manufacturing, obviously healthcare. But I mean, in summary, I think just SMBs alone, not the true definition of the 800 plus seat. I mean, you can mix that back and forth, but I'm going to say, sub 50, sub 100 seats, what I think of as a regular SMB, wow, they are definitely rapidly moving to the cloud with that light switch. Okay.
That was it. I will put it in your hands. Anything else you want to add? And we got 1 minute if we wanted to stay on our 35-minute.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we're super excited. We're closing out 2018 with a bang. And we're just super excited to keep growing in Q1 of 2019 and for many years to come. Please give us a call and let's schedule your cloud readiness assessment.
I'm a liar. I always say it's your last. You're the last word. I'm not. I'm going to be the last word.
All right. Well, please do.
You guys get it. I'm sorry. It's just you guys.
Please don't apologize. Thank you.
You guys get it. So I got to put my kudos to you and your business partners there. So I appreciate your time, my friend, and let's continue to do these.
Awesome. Hey, look forward to it, Todd. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone, and hope to be in touch soon.